Daily Devotion with Pastor Balla for September 18th, 2021 from Psalm chapter 61, Places of Protection. Verse 1, Hear my cry, O God. Listen to my prayer. From the end of the earth I call to you when my heart is faint. Lead me to the rock that is higher than I, for you have been my refuge, a strong tower against the enemy. As the psalmist asks God to listen to his prayer, he also asks God to lead him to the rock that is higher than himself. So where does God lead us? The only answer, where God promises to be. So where does God promise to be? Jesus tells us in Matthew chapter 18, verse 20, For where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am among them. So where is God leading us? To church, where believers gather to hear God's word. Again, Jesus beautifully reminds us in the Gospel of Matthew chapter 16, verse 18, And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Yes, it is the church, based upon God's word, where believers gather. This is the place where God is leading us. He's leading us to our protection. He's leading us to the place where we will be kept, and God will be there. The psalmist then continues, verse 4, Let me dwell in your tent forever. Let me take refuge under the shelter of your wings. For you, O God, have heard my vows. You have given me the heritage of those who fear your name. Yes, it is the church, the place where we are sheltered from the many storms of life. And we need that protection, just like we need a protection of a government, so that we may freely worship God and be in a place of safety. We need to remember that during the time of the psalmist, the king, and the religious system, so to speak, were kind of connected together. So when the king believed, the religious system was intact for the people to gather around God's word. So what would the psalmist do? Verse 6, Prolong the life of the king. May his years endure to all generations. May he be enthroned forever before God. Appoint steadfast love and faithfulness to watch over him. The church, the government, and the family. These are 3 places that God's word sets up for our protection, so that we may learn about the Christian faith at home and at church and be protected by the government, so that we may freely worship God without fear. And this is what the psalmist is directing our attention to Christ and the church. As the psalmist ends this psalm in verse 8, So I will ever sing praises to your name as I perform my vows day after day. So we gather around God's word and sacrament, especially here at Peace Lutheran Church, and we ask God to continue to strengthen the church so that we may be bold to proclaim God's word and be a shelter for people who are suffering in the midst of storms of life. God's peace and many blessings be with you. And thank you for listening. And please take an opportunity to share this message with others. If you have enjoyed these daily devotions, please consider making a donation to Peace Lutheran Church, 24024 West Main Street, Plainfield, Illinois, 60544. Thank you again for listening.